Hey, people. So, this is a short clip of Tulsi giving an answer to a question that pertains to impeachment yesterday at an event in Manchester, New Hampshire. So, that was yesterday, January 16th. And I think she makes a really crucial point here that has been almost entirely ignored by everybody who's discussed this impeachment process and the implications that it has for the conduct of U.S. foreign policy. Remember, the articles of impeachment are now, for better or worse, in my judgment, for worse, embedded into the very fabric of American governance. And so, what she says here, in terms of what these articles of impeachment portend, has already been ratified and is now going to have an influence on how U.S. foreign policy is conducted for the rest of our history. So it's really, really important. And I thought she did an excellent job of summarizing this point. So I'll just let her speak for herself here. The quality of the audio is not that great. That's why I transcribed it. But I figured, better than nothing. And for whatever reason, I don't see the video of the stream from this event on her YouTube. So I'm just going to put it up as is. And, yep, have a listen.
The impeachment process did finally give us a chance to see the true face of the Washington, D.C. insiders, the swamp. In particular, we saw and heard from Lieutenant Colonel Goodman how the interagency census has a different opinion and agenda than duly elected officials. How do you propose to continue this fight against the Washington insiders who have to stand up against the will of the American people?
I'm going to add a little more specificity to what you're referring to for those who may not have watched those hours and hours of hearings. I did, but I know what you're talking about here, and there were a number of people who testified through those hearings, making statements about how President Trump was not following U.S. foreign policy. Is that a fair characterization?
According to the interagency.
According to the interagencies, according to the State Department, and so on and so forth. Now look, I will be the first to tell you, I disagree with a lot of President Trump's foreign policy decisions. But I also will tell you that those statements in those hearings really took me aback, because they were coming from people who, many of them were decades-long bureaucrats serving in the State Department, who were basically saying that they were the leaders of our country's U.S. foreign policy, not the President of the United States. That, at its face, should be cause for some concern to us all, because we're all gathered here tonight because you have a big decision to make ahead of you as New Hampshire voters and future voters in Wisconsin about who you want to serve as your President Commander-in-Chief. And you have to have the confidence that whoever you vote for, you will be able to hold to account for the decisions that are made. If there are decisions that are made that you disagree with, you need to know that those decisions are coming from the person that you voted for, and you can hold that person accountable. What was alarming about what some of those statements were, and even doubled down on when questioned by members of Congress, was that these are unelected officials, public servants working within our government, chiding the president for not abiding by U.S. policy, when really it is the president who sets that U.S. foreign policy. So what do we do? I think the bigger question here is when we look at the long-standing foreign policy of of our government of waging regime change wars, continuing to wage these wasteful, stupid wars in other countries that have cost us so tremendously in American lives and in taxpayer dollars. How do you bring about that sea change in foreign policy when you have folks who don't believe that the president actually sets foreign policy? It requires a change in leadership, and strong leadership. Leadership from the White House, with an understanding and depth in foreign policy and national security, and the ability to be able to bring leaders in from outside of this Washington establishment who can be those agents of change, that can bring about the change that I think the vast majority of Americans want to see. We don't want to see more and more of our nation's sons and daughters needlessly sent off to fight into wars that don't have anything to do with our country's interests, and that actually undermine our national security's interests. We're sick and tired of seeing $4 billion a month being taken out of our pockets, out of our schools, out of our healthcare system, out of our infrastructure needs, to go and prop up a corrupt government in Afghanistan that even our own leaders across the last 3 administrations cannot justify why we're at war in Afghanistan. These Afghanistan papers released revealed so much about how leaders in uniform and civilian leaders in our own government have been lying to us to justify continuing a war that privately they're saying they can't even figure out why we're there, or what victory looks like, or at what point we'll be able to withdraw, at what point we'll be able to stop throwing away our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. This is the problem. This requires leadership. And this is the experience that I have that will enable me to bring about this change, this sea change in our foreign policy, where I've worked in Congress now for 7 years, focused on these issues, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services, the Homeland Security Committee. I've had a front row seat to what goes on in Washington, what drives the different decisions that people are making, and who these players are that exert such great influence over both Democrat and Republican administrations, to the point where there's not much of a difference between parties. I bring the experience that I just have personally as a soldier. I still serve in the Army National Guard today, going on almost 17 years. I'm deployed twice, and my first deployment was in a medical unit during the height of the war. We were stationed about 40 miles north of Baghdad, where every single day we were confronted with the terribly high human cost of war, the people, the families who pay the price. American lives lost. So many of our brothers and sisters in uniform coming home with injuries, both visible and invisible. Seeing the price that's paid by the people, the countries where we wage these wars, the destruction that goes along with it. And it really begs the question, why? What is it for? Unfortunately, sometimes war is necessary. This is why we have a military. They need to be strong. They need to be ready to protect and defend the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. Like so many people, that's why I enlisted after 9/11. It was that event that motivated me to make that decision. But when we have our troops continuing to serve in wars where our own leaders cannot answer that question to justify them putting their life in harm's way, it requires strong leadership and courage to make the calls that many others before have failed to make, to bring our troops home, to end these wasteful regime change wars, to exercise diplomacy, to de-escalate tensions between the U.S. and other nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China, to get us out of this new Cold War and nuclear arms race. And instead of spending $4 billion a month in Afghanistan, let's spend those $4 billion a month on investing in our communities and rebuilding our country right here at home. This is the sea change in our foreign policy that we need to see, that will enable us to get our priorities straight in this country, where we are putting the well-being and the interests of our people and our country first. This is what I'm running for president to do. And this is why I'm here inviting all of you to join me. Because it will not be easy. This change is big change. The military-industrial complex and the foreign policy establishment in Washington are very invested in maintaining the status quo. This is what we know. We also know the only way to bring about this change is for we the people to make sure that our voices are heard through our votes and that we hold leaders accountable. There are a lot of different pieces of legislation and changes we need to see across our government that require us working with Congress to be able to do so. The difference between the change that a president can make lies solely within that service as Commander-in-Chief in our foreign policy, where even as it will take some time to break through the gridlock in Washington, I guarantee you on day one as president, I will begin this process to end our regime change wars and to bring our troops home.